GT America, powered by AWS, roars back to life this weekend here at Sonoma Raceway. As ever, the field is a mix of veteran drivers with rich racing CVs and up-and-comers looking to cut their teeth in GT racing. This series is a bastion of mixed-class racing with GT2, GT3, and GT4 cars all sharing the track simultaneously. And with just 40 minutes on offer in this sprint race format, there's no time for patience. Hello, welcome to Northern California and Sonoma Raceway, the verdant hills just north of San Francisco. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside, and it's Amanda Busick down in the pits once again on a beautiful day for racing and the kickoff to the GT America powered by AWS season. 3 classes, great mix of cars, and great to see GT2 cars more in the mix here as we take a look at the beautiful weather conditions. Temperatures just up over 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Calvin, it is going to be fascinating to see how 3 classes interact here at Sonoma. We haven't really seen that much in the past.
No, I mean, those GT2 cars are absolute monsters in terms of the horsepower. They don't have the downforce of the other cars in this field, and Sonoma is all about braking and getting through the corners, so I think they're going to struggle to see the front of the field here, but certainly great to have them as part of the show.
Now, we've got many of the contenders from a year ago back, but also some newcomers to the championship and drivers, too, that are making the step from one class to another. Plenty of stories to cover over the course of this 40-minute race. On the front row, though, it's 2 names that we called a lot last year, Jason Daskalos and Johnny O'Connell. Daskalos back in that Mercedes you see on the right-hand side of the screen, but Johnny O in an Audi. And yes, we saw him in an Audi last year, but this car is about 10 years newer than the one he raced a year ago.
Yeah, it certainly is, and the whole group there at Ski Autosport are excited about the potential to go for a championship. He won the Masters class this year, had a win at Nashville, but this is a whole new kettle of fish in terms of the performance factor with this car. Johnny's celebrating 40 years of professional racing. He knows this racetrack like the back of his hand, was an instructor here in his early days, has been based with a few teams that have been based on these premises as well. So it's kind of home turf for Johnny O. And they didn't know quite what they were going to be at in qualifying or in that practice session this morning, but a really solid run. And he can see the front. He's going to try and get it there on the jump here. But you know Jason Daskalos, he's one of the more aggressive pilots in our field. This
row is an interesting one. You've got 04 Crown Strike by Riley car of George Kurtz. He's a former champion in this series. Next to him, Justin Rothberg, who does have a few years of Ferrari Challenge experience, including a championship, but brand new to GT3 racing. He's got some masters starting all around him.
Yeah, such a great mix to see that experience all around young Justin Rothberg, but he's with a great group, Turner Motorsport. Have had so much success in this paddock over the years. Now they're back full-time with Justin running in GTA, and he's going to team up with Robbie Foley in Fanatec GT as well this weekend.
Now, the third member of the broadcast crew is Amanda Busick, and she's standing by on what is suddenly a very loud, raucous pit lane as we're about to get started here, Amanda.
Oh, absolutely. And the GT3 and GT4 machinery just lit their engines as we get started for race number 1 here in GT America. They are going to head out for those formation laps. You're talking about Justin Rothberg. He's going to be a newcomer into this SRO 3 class. You mentioned his Ferrari Challenge experience. He joins us off of a championship season in that Trofeo Pirelli AM class. He has had success here at Sonoma, so I imagine he should be able to apply some of that muscle memory around the 12 turns of this place. But sorry you're not seeing me on camera right now. I'm actually standing next to last year's champion Mamo Gidley, who's here rooting on those competitors. I saw George Kurtz give him a little bit of thumbs up. They might be kind of glad that our champ is not in a car for this race as they look to take the checkered flag.
Ooh, late-minute dramas here for Kyle Washington as they're trying to get him strapped in and ready to go. This is not what you want before your first race of the year.
No, very much the case. And you can see him scrambling, so it looked like he missed the call time and doesn't have his gloves on even yet. So this is a big scramble here.
There will be a chance for him, if they can release him soon, to regain his position on the starting grid. We'll keep an eye on that. But right now, let's talk about this track here, Calvin. It is one of a kind.
is very special. Just over 2.5 miles. You can see 12 turns, some hairpin turns, big heavy brake zones, high speed corners as well. But the elevation change is the real kicker here. That's what determines the challenge of this racetrack. We've spoken about it all weekend, Ryan, in terms of this new racing surface. Generates a lot of grip, so it's very much a learning process with a lack of practice time here this weekend, and the drivers are going to be learning every single lap here, trying to negotiate their way around and find the speed out of this racetrack.
Those track records you saw there were shattered in the lone session, the lone official session leading up to this event. I'm not sure if that can count for a track record because it wasn't technically a qualifying session. Nevertheless, I expect it will fall here in the race and make that a moot argument. But Jason Dascalo's pole-setting time was about 3 seconds faster than the previous SRO 3 track record. And in GT4, debutant Isaac Sherman was about 4 seconds under the existing record. So, gives you some idea of how much more speed is on offer, more grip on offer on this brand new surface here around the track, which admittedly has been a storyline this weekend. The reason we only had the one session here this weekend ahead of the race is because portions of the track were coming up, but give the series and give the track a ton of credit because the patches they have put down have withstood the tests we've seen to this point, and the reward has been, so far, an uninterrupted day of racing. Yeah,
it's been great. I mean, I think everyone was nervous getting here this morning to see once we got these big, heavy, high downforce cars on there, but it stood up to the test.
Jason Dascalos will start from pole in the first race of the season. Johnny O'Connell alongside as he looks for a championship in year 2. George Kurtz will start third, former series champion, alongside newcomer Justin Rothberg. Mirko Schultes is back in the Callaway Corvette. Great to see that. Alongside Ross Schwest, who makes the jump up to SRO 3, having had success in GT4 in the past. Kyle Washington had those issues on the grid. We'll see if he's able to rejoin in that position. He will start 7th. It looks like he won't start 7th, actually. He's still being held in the pit lane. James Safronis was due to line up 8th. Jason Bell and Tim Savage will start in 9th and 10th. 2 other drivers making that move from GT4 to SRO 3. Now we get to the GT2 runners. There are 3 in total. Aaron Farhadi in a Lamborghini and Brent Holden in a Mercedes-AMG GT2. Alan Grossberg also in a Lamborghini here this weekend. Isaac Sherman, new to the championship, driving for Rotec Racing. He's on pole in the GT4 class. Gray Newell is back for another go, as is Kurt Swearingen. They start in the second row. Then you get to Todd Perriott back once more alongside Nick Shanny for the Karis Kallis race team, and Todd Coleman starting out back in his Aston Martin. That's how this grid will line up. Again, 3 different classes, multi-class racing, just 40 minutes. Really curious to see how these cars all interact with one another because they make their speed in much different ways.
Yeah, and you're going to probably get some lapping going on before the end of this 40-minute sprint race. You see a few marbles offline from the tires, but so far the racing surface looks good. Don't see any of the breakup that we saw earlier in this week. So again, tremendous amount of work by everyone with the SRO staff, the track staff, and everyone, and we've been seeing some great racing already here today.
We'll see 2 distinct green flags. This is the car that started from the pits. That was Kyle Washington, so he's now hustling back around, trying to get caught up to a degree at least, but he's going to have some work to do with the SRO 3 field coming through turn 11 here for the final time before the start of the 2024 season. On the Roval pole is Jason Dascalos. He enters the VP acceleration zone with Johnny O'Connell alongside. Row 2 is Kurtz and Rothberg as the green flag waves. Oh, and we've got contact already in the back of this field. That was Schultes, I think, who tagged the outside wall of the Callaway Corvette. Actually,
the 007, I think it's Tim Savage, I believe.
Quite right. Oh, James Safronis also with an issue.
Yeah, I wonder if he was involved there potentially.
Keep tabs on those stories as they develop, but everyone able to continue away, single file up the hill now with Dascalos leading George Kurtz, who got the jump on Johnny O'Connell. He's up into the 2nd spot ahead of Johnny Red.
Certainly seems like that inside line, the couple of starts we've seen so far today, gets the favor on the outside runner like Johnny O on the outside of the front row. So George Kurtz took advantage there, immediately moves his crowd strike by Riley. Mercedes AMG up into P2.
Great getaway from Isaac Sherman from the pole, but it's Grain Newell who has dropped a spot to Kurt Swearingen. Second in the GT4 class, changed hands right there off the jump. Side-by-side battle, a little bit further back. Looks like that's Ross Schwest going inside of Justin Rothberg. It's been a fraught start for Rothberg, who started in the 5th position, but has dropped a couple of positions now.
Yeah, and he got really wide there through the second part of turn 7. Couldn't find any grip, so he's just trying to scramble, get back into his rhythm here. So he gets familiar with this form of competition in SRO.
First time through the chicane at speed here in the 2024 season. Start is under review. Pass along any information that comes our way as we peek in here at the Mirko Schultes-driven Callaway Corvette.
Just a recap of the regulations on an initial start. You have to stay in your column, and you're not allowed to pass before the stripe. One column can kind of leap ahead of the other, but you can't pass within your column, and there was certainly contact mid-pack there, causing Savage to get into the wall a little bit.
No one came to the pit lane, though, importantly. Tim Savage stays out on the track, driving for Pro Sport competition this year. Indianapolis.
Oh, great move there by Rothberg. Takes advantage of Schwest as they climb the hill there through turn 3.
A nice recovery there by Rothberg, who had dropped back initially. Now he's got in his crosshairs that Callaway Corvette of the German driver Mirko Schultes.
See, they're just setting up, hugging the inside line, then just burst of acceleration coming off the carousel. Looking to the outside as the 2 leaders in close proximity through turn 7.
Great start from Kurtz to grab second from Okada, and now he is on the attack. Speaking of on the attack, how about Rothberg? He's picked up 2 spots on this lap. First around Schwest, now around Schultes too.
Yeah, just 1 lap ago, he's scrambling for grip and losing time, and now he's taken 2 cars. He's back into the groove, back into a rhythm, and back on the attack.
Now what kind of pace does he have in that car? Can he run down the top 3? Still early stages in the season opener for GT America, powered by AWS. SRO 3 led by Jason Daskalos. GT2 is Farhadi out in front. No action taken, as you can see from race control on the start of the race. The GT4 class is led by Isaac Sherman here with just a couple laps in the books.
Let's not forget, in GT America, you're not allowed tire warmers for some of these GT3 runners in this field. They're used to having tire warmers for the start of the Fanatec GT race, not for this one. So even though it's relatively mild conditions, maybe that caught Rothberg out a little bit there on the opening laps. But this is a great little battle developing in GT4.
Yeah, it's Isaac Sherman leading the way in the blue car from Rotec Racing. Giving chase, though, is Kurt Swearingen, driver owner of this team, closing in. He qualified 3rd. There was a big gap first back to 2nd within this class, about half a second, and then another half a second or so back to Swearingen in 3rd. But in race trim, at least, Kurt looks like he's found the pace.
Yeah, he has. So Gray Newell's kind of slipped back a little bit in the heart of racing Aston Martin. We expected him to be knocking on the door for the lead at this stage of the race. He's got a bit of work to do. He's got that Kyle Washington machine in between he and the 2 leaders in GT4 currently.
There is the aforementioned Gray Newell. This Heart of Racing team and livery will look familiar if you've been following sports car racing over the last few years, racing in the States, racing in Australia, racing now in the World Endurance Championship as well. They'll be the team that runs the new Valkyrie prototype, both stateside and in the WEC in the future.
And all of their drivers on their various squads are now taking advantage of a brand new sim system, driver and loop system that they have in Arizona. So that's been a big advantage for that group as well, to get used to a start of a new season, getting some of the setups dialed in, and there's a great correlation now between some of these sims and what you showcase there, and you can bring it to the racetrack. It actually works. The correlation is so much closer than it has been in previous years.
CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race, fittingly enough to Mr. CrowdStrike himself, George Kurtz, who chopped off about 0.4 of a second off of Jason Daskalos' lead on the last lap, and he has closed in now as these 2 Mercedes drivers do battle through the carousel.
George there just trying to set up the run off the carousel, trying to get a little bit more exit speed, but they look pretty even there though, even though they took a different approach to the carousel. This is turn 7 where all of the drivers have recognized there's a ton more grip. You really approach that corner totally differently to years past. And you're just winding up through the gears here. It's not easy flat, but these GT3 cars generate so much downforce, then into a big brake zone here. And just visually watching these cars roll speed through here, they just seem to be 2 or 3 miles an hour up on previous years running.
Just adds to the commitment level through these high-speed sections of the track. That third sector in particular, super high commitment with that flowing SS section.
Spoke to Jason the other day, and he said they really had thoughts about running in Fanatec GT. He's got Ryan Dial here this weekend, working as a coach, and there was thoughts about those two guys working together in that championship. But he found that his crew chief, Sheldon Miller, who's here this weekend, has unfortunately been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. So he said, you know, we really just felt as a whole group we had too much going on, and I've just decided to focus on GTA and just do as much as I can and celebrate Sheldon's life. He's here, he's still with us, but yeah, that just really changed their course of action for the 2024 season when they got that unfortunate news. So our thoughts are with him.
Racing with heavy hearts, but inspired at the same time, and Jason Dascolo showing the way. Kurtz in second, O'Connell a distant third, then fourth place to this man, Justin Rothberg, who's had the most exciting start to the race, I think it's safe to say. Dropped a few spots, but now has recovered, and is putting in some solid lap times, just about a second or so off of the top 3. Here we go to the GT2 field, where the number 127 of Aaron Farhadi shows the way. Grossberg and Holden, though, in second and third, I believe, are in relatively close proximity.
Yeah, I think it's a close battle for second there between Grossberg and Holden. They're only about half a second apart, whereas Farhadi has a healthy lead right now of about 6 seconds.
Here they are, nose to tail. Lamborghini versus Mercedes, and if you're not familiar with the GT2 platform, more power, less downforce than their GT3 cousins, and that did not end nicely for either.
No, it wasn't shaping up, but it didn't look good right from the get-go with that move there down to the inside by Brent, and he just got it a little bit wrong. And you talk about the downforce, these GT2 cars do not have a ton of downforce to help you into these brake zones, and I didn't think that was ever going to work, unfortunately.
Right now we stay green. Those two cars still stationary in turn 7. Contact between Holden and Grossberg, fighting for second and third in the GT2 class at the moment of impact. Now, briefly at least, we look back in on these top 2. How much time will they have?
See there in the background there that both cars have got moving out of that turn 7 area. There's Holden, he just got going, the Lamborghini. There's a few corners ahead of the game. You see some damage there to that Mercedes. Big weekend for GMG. They've got a ton of cars here that they're entering, and 3 different German manufacturers at the same time, so interesting mix.
Now, the good news is we stay green with both cars able to drive away from the accident scene, and that lets this battle for the lead continue between 2 drivers that know each other well. Each of these 2 has been racing in GT America since the series inception. This is year 4. George Kurtz, in his championship year, his closest rival was Jason Dascalos. He was about the only one that could keep George honest that year.
Yeah, it really was. And when George showed up to try and repeat the title last year, he realized there's a ton more quality entries with Mercedes similar platforms. So we had a tougher go of it last year, but it looks like he's rebounded, and George Kurtz having a really strong opener here. James Safronis, what history he has with this championship. 4 championship titles to his name, over 300 starts. Lives and breathes racing. He's a great little battle right here with Ross Schwest. This is for P6.
His history goes all the way back to 1994 when he made his series debut in what was then SCCA World Challenge, the super production class, driving something called an Oldsmobile Achieva. I couldn't draw one or picture one if I needed to. But evidently that was what he made his debut in all the way back in 1994. And the story on that, by the way, goes something like, the car was a backup car for another driver. He rented it for $1,800, which was his entire life savings up to that point, as Sofronis goes wide and leaves him a bit vulnerable here to Jason Bell. But I'll tell you what, it turned out that was a pretty good investment, because James has made racing not just a hobby, but his entire professional life.
What a success story it really has. He and his brother initially established the business together, and James has just taken it from strength to strength. But, you know, he loves his racing. He's so excited. He told me this weekend he's definitely back. He's going to try the first 3 races, see how it goes. But he knows that if there's any issues with the rest of his customers, that becomes the priority immediately. And his racing is second priority. But you can see he gives it everything.
I think you could expect to see him racing in the GT2 support race to the CrowdStrike 24 Hours of Spa this year as well, which he's done in the past. And he told me earlier in the weekend that is the intention.
Well, he makes it fun, you know, for guys like Kyle Washington, who he's now doing a bunch of entries for in various forms of competition. He keeps it fun. It's first class. The cars are always immaculately prepared. But he becomes friends with these guys and girls, and you know, it really becomes great chemistry.
Don't think it'll be too long until the next generation of Sofronis is popping up in the paddock too. His teenage son evidently chomping at the bit to get a chance to drive a race car, and I think James aspires to maybe race alongside his son in a multi-driver format at some point down the road.
Yeah, I think Jensen is maybe 13 years old now.
14
as I always turned. So,
yeah.
And Chloe, his daughter, is big into lacrosse. So busy times for that family.
Busy at the front of the field here too, between Daskalos and Kurtz. Now we're starting to get into some of that mixed class racing that we talked about with the GT4 field coming up. Daskalos just turned in the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race. It got taken away moments later by Johnny O'Connell, interestingly. Whoa, we got a car off track. These guys have to weave through like slalom skiers, and able to do so. But the fight continues to rage between Daskalos and Kurtz.
Yeah, I think that was Pario maybe briefly off track there, and Daskalos had a good moment there. Now we see Holden, I think, back to pit lane.
That's a drive-through penalty for incident responsibility. This goes back a couple of laps. I think we saw it live. The contact between Grossberg and Holden. Here is what caused that penalty to be issued.
Yeah, he just came from a long way back there, just misjudged it, unfortunately. I'm sure it wasn't intentional. He just missed his braking point a little bit, thought the door was open. But, you know, the brake zones are so much shorter now. You don't have these long, trying to get the car slowed down with lack of grip. It really shortens things up and changed the dynamic there on the entry to some of these corners.
One of many results of that repave around this track. Another is a relative lack of tire wear over the course of one of these 40-minute races. This fight's hotted back up again. Sofronis has reeled Trest back in.
Yeah, Ross was pretty defensive there. He's had a ton of success. Won the GT4 championship a couple of years ago by sweeping the final round to Indianapolis. Came from a long way back in the points to steal the title that year, and was a big contender for the title again in 2023. And then he and his whole group, along with Aaron Povolito, have made this move up to GT3 competition, running in GTA and obviously Fanatec GT. Oh, little moment there. I think James is going to run over the top of that. Mercedes had to jink to the outside there and lost a bit of ground.
All of this battle for 6th and 7th, happening about 6 seconds behind 5th place running Mirko Schultes. Interesting too, if you look behind Sofronis, running back in 8th is Jason Bell, and it seemed like for the last 3 years, Bell and Schwest, and Elias Sabo as well, but these two in particular, they were the ones fighting at the front of the GT4 class in GT America. And here now they find themselves competitors and not too far away from each other in SRO 3.
Yeah, I think for Jason Bell, it's a big step up. Unfortunately, had a slight delay in getting hold of the Aston Martin Vantage. That curtailed their testing preparation for the season, and obviously it's been a difficult week for everyone with a lack of practice. And so they're low on the totem pole in terms of that learning curve right now.
Johnny O'Connell is on the track here. One of his sparring mates from last year is with Amanda.
Mamo Gidley joining us here for race 1 at Sonoma at his home track. I imagine it's pretty hard being outside of the car looking in, but walk us through last season and just how memorable it was for you.
Well, I'll tell you, last season was awesome. I mean, it had been a long time since I'd done a full year, and we did 18 races last year. That's way longer than I've ever gone for a long time. And to have the competition level out there, and we just dialed in the TKO car, the Mercedes. Great to have Lizard behind us. And it was just nice, a lot of stress, but it just feels so good. Even right now, without a ride, it still feels so great what we did last year.
You battled these guys last year. Whose year is it, do you think?
Well, I think Daskalos is going to be strong. And Kurtz, though, you know, that car, they run so often. They have so much time. Very strong package. And then Johnny O'Connell, I mean, the guy's a legend. So they're going to get that Audi figured, you know, dialed in, and he's going to figure it out. I think it's going to be a battle. I told him, hey, you got to get points every race, and I think that's what they're going to do.
All those names that Mamo just enters, they all kept themselves accountable last year.
Now, Johnny O'Connell not resting on that legend status by any stretch of the imagination. Had the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race a few laps ago, and that Ski Autosport Audi has reeled in George Kurtz in the CrowdStrike by Riley Mercedes. This is the fight for second and third.
Yeah, you can see the fight there through traffic. So George has been stymied here a little bit. He's lost touch with the leader, Jason Daskalos. He's got now a healthy, almost a 2-second lead up in front of him. Johnny O, brilliant racecraft there to split that GT4 car, go to the left-hand side on the run to turn 7. Nearly took advantage to move up to P2, but he's keeping the pressure on George Kurtz here. He's got to regroup a little bit.
Kurtz settling back in as we approach the halfway mark, just 2 minutes away in race 1 of the season for GT America. Kurtz climbing that hill with O'Connell in tow. The Mercedes you saw flash through the picture just a few moments ago at the very front, that was the race leader Daskalos. The lead is 3.2 seconds, first back to second, but it's only 0.6 of a second back to O'Connell in third. Now we've got a fight breaking out over second and third in GT4. Kurt Swearingen has it, Gray Newell wants it, and Gray Newell, as he is wont to do, just settling in and getting stronger as the race has progressed.
Yeah, he really has. Didn't have the best start to the race, but he's regrouped nicely, as now caught the attention of Kurt Swearingen there. This is the battle for P2. Sherman continues to lead now by a couple of seconds. Spoke to Ian James this weekend, who really holds the reins on this harder racing team with all of their various activities globally, and he said Newell's done a really nice job. He's also getting a lot of GT3 experience as well, so it's not out of the picture that he may move up a class for next year, but right now his focus is on these GT4 championships.
Ran in a GT3 Mercedes at the 24 Hours of Dubai earlier this year for a partnership between this Heart of Racing team and European Mercedes stalwart SPS Automotive Performance. That lineup included Gray Newell, Pierre Kleinubing, interestingly enough. Longtime fans of this championship will remember that name. Darren Turner and Daniel Mancinelli. So pretty good company there for Gray to learn from. Racing at the 24 Hours of Dubai over the winter. But now back into this GT4 car. Same car he drove last year in GT America. Finished 4th in the championship. Racking up 6 podiums, couple of poles, and 1 fastest lap award. Also raced in Pirelli GT4 America, where he finished 4th last year. Alongside a combination of drivers, he and James started the season, but finished with Roman DeAngelis as his co-driver.
Yeah, I think when Ian suddenly switched his attention to that World Endurance Championship, that opened up the door to have to spread the load a little bit amongst the pool of drivers that they have. So Roman DeAngelis, I understand, is going to be doing the full season here alongside Gray. So that should be a pretty potent combination in GT4 America as well when they run together.
Here's the difference between GT3 and GT4 illustrated in this shot. GT3 BMW coming through. More downforce, more electronic driver aids in that car. A little more power as well than these GT4 machines. But in some of the tight sections of the track, there's not that big of a difference in performance between the two classes. It's when they get to stretch their legs a bit that the GT3 machines start to show their strength.
Yeah, quite a bit of difference, obviously, in terms of the horsepower. Everything's beefed up on the GT3 machines, but the nice thing is with the GT4 cars, they're not quite so aero-reliant, so they're allowed to, or allows them to run a little bit closer in proximity on the racetrack without getting any aero wash through certain high-speed corners that we'll encounter during the course of the season. Not so much here, but yeah, it's just a great class. I mean, it's really a sweet spot in terms of the budgets that it takes to run a GT4 car, and that's why it's so popular.
This has not let up, has it? Ron Schwest, James Safronis as they approach some traffic here. Ooh, Schwest a little
there,
wide.
yeah. He just got a little bit out of sync there coming up the hill, got in there a little bit shallow, and that allowed James to carve the corner a bit more efficiently. Now he's trying to find a way through there. This is the crest of the hill through 3B, plunge down the hill, huge elevation drop there. Look at James just trying to set up, trying to get the clean exit here, get a run. Mistimes it a little bit, actually loses a little bit of ground by doing that.
Really interesting to watch here. Safronis, a veteran of GT3 racing. Ross Schwest making his first ever GT3 race start right now. You're watching it just about halfway through, just over halfway through race one.
Not an easy spot there for Swearingen to kind of get out of the way of these faster cars. But again, I think the racetrack is helping with the amount of grip that you have offline a little bit more than in years past.
Schwest was warned for blocking in turn 3. That just handed down from race control, so he has to drive with that in the back of his mind as Safronis continues to probe for a weakness. Where can he pounce? He looks alongside here on the entrance to the chicane. Tough place to go side by side, so James backs out of it.
Now blocking could be made if you're reacting to a move from behind by another competitor. You can be proactive like he is there, just picking his line. You can choose where you want to be on the racetrack, but you have to essentially do it first. You can't suddenly swerve across the road and take the path away from someone who's already making that move behind you.
Working their way past the leader in the GT4 class, Isaac Sherman.
What a clean run he's had today. Very impressive, grabbing that pole position and controlling this race in the GT4 division.
Late addition to the grid as well. He was not on the pre-event entry list. That came later.
Great team. They know that Porsche so well. Always put a good setup underneath. Rob Holland has delivered so many solid results over the past couple of seasons with that group.
Oh, here we go. Safronis gets to the flank. Can he hold it there?
This is getting wild. This is what you talk about with the carousel, with the grip. Can you go side by side through here? We're seeing it right now.
Schwest leaves just enough room, and that lets Safronis draw alongside into the braking zone for 7.
That was awesome. Little budge there. Elbows out, argy-bargy. Safronis clears him.
Great respect shown, though, by those two drivers that probably have not spent much time racing with one another previously.
Yeah, I think there was a little handoff there at the end as well from James, though. He said, you made that a little bit tougher than it needed to be, but that's what it's all about. Fierce competitor Ross Schwest didn't want to give up the position.
But it does change hands. Schwest gives up 6 to James Safronis. Safronis will put his head down in pursuit now of Mirko Schultes in the Callaway Corvette, checking back in at the front of the field. And Daskalos, the lead was up over 3 seconds, but it's now down to 1.3 as George Kurtz continues to chip away at it. That said, Daskalos had his best lap of the race the last time around, and that's let him build that gap back up a little bit. And don't forget, Johnny O'Connell sits in 3rd, but in the same camera shot as the leader for the first time, really, since the very start of the race.
Yeah, Kurtz had laid down a new fast lap of the race at 1:35.18 and had carved that lead back down to under a second. Daskalos, as you said, faster on that last lap, so he's spread the gap once again. Real seesaw battle as we see Swearingen, I think, very wide there coming through the carousel. No, it's actually the Lamborghini.
For Hardy, I think.
Yeah, getting really wide there, almost in no man's land in terms of keeping the car on the racetrack.
This is a fight here for position. Rothberg and Schultes. Schultes also had his car's fastest lap of the race on the last tour of the track. That's what we've been talking about with this new track surface here at Sonoma. Just not much performance drop off, and as the car burns fuel, you're not seeing the tires drop off to compensate. It really not a great difference in pace from the start of the race to the end.
No, theoretically, if there's no tire drop off in performance, the cars will get quicker just by, as you mentioned, the fuel load burning off. Cars get lighter, lighter cars go faster, of course. Not trying to stop as much weight into these brake zones.
Much in the way the battle between Schwest and Sofronis was a contrasted experience. I think this also fits the bill. Rothberg with a few years of Ferrari challenge under his belt, but Mirko Schultes has been in this game for a decade plus, racing lots of different cars all over the world, most of them powered by Chevrolet. He has an affinity for Chevrolet dating back to his early days racing motorcycles in his native Germany, where he needed a tow vehicle, somehow managed to find a Chevy Blazer.
Fell in love with Chevys, right?
Yeah, exactly. And he's tried to race a Chevy almost exclusively ever since.
Yeah, just an amazing story. I love his passion, just a real character. I had a chat with him here this weekend. He's got his family out here. They're enjoying the Napa Valley. He's got his 3 young daughters and his wife. And he's kind of a one-man band. He does a lot of that work himself on that race car, and he just loves it. He just digs it.
Gave up some ground, though, on this lap. He had started to close in, and I'm not quite sure where he disappeared off to, but he wasn't in the same shot as Rothberg anymore. Now, could this be, are these the same two? Have they found each other again? Grossberg and Holden. Oh, and Grossberg goes wide.
I think Holden may be a lap down.
Okay.
I'm not sure that was position, actually, but check on that.
Holden had the penalty for the contact between the two earlier. You're never quite sure how the sequel is going to play out when the original maybe didn't have the happiest of endings.
This is good, though. Look at Daskalos. He has responded. He has gapped Kurtz again. The gap now up to 2 seconds. You see Johnny O in the shadows of Kurtz trying to keep him honest, but Daskalos, what a really nice drive he's putting together here.
That last lap again, he just reset his personal fastest lap of the race at a 35.2, about a 10th quicker than Kurtz at a 35.3. And O'Connell dropping off a little bit over the last few laps. His last lap was a 35.8, so about half a second or so off the front runners.
But it's early days for Ski Autosport and that whole group in learning the Audi. It's a much newer piece, potentially got a lot more performance, should put them in with a shout for the championship title. But they just did a couple of days testing at Sebring about a couple of months ago. Learned the ropes a little bit with that, and got what Johnny O would say, the best engineer he's ever had in his career. And we talked about him celebrating 40 years in Rossella Manfrenato. Johnny just cannot say enough great things about her ability to dial in a race car. So they will get this Audi right, and she's got so much Italian passion running through her blood to be working on something other than a Ferrari is kind of cool in its own way. But she said she's up for the task and looking forward to the season.
Also, Phil Creighton involved with that team, and Phil's got so much experience over the years. Great asset. And
it's not inconceivable that those guys may entertain a Fanatec GT race or two this year. Matt Bell did some testing with them at Sebring to help them learn the ropes of the Audi, so I would say that he may be a favorite should that happen.
Begs the question, which Matt Bell? British Matt Bell or American Matt Bell?
That's the British Matt Bell.
Okay,
the American Matt Bell, though, is back in competition here this weekend, which is fun to see.
That answers my other question I had, because I did see that, and it always gets a bit confusing. Both accomplished in their own right, but slightly different CVs, I think it's safe to say. Nevertheless, back to people who actually are in this race. This is the newcomer, Isaac Sherman. And we're going to be learning a lot about Isaac this season, it would appear. His advantage has started to grow, or really continued to grow over the course of this race. Gray Newell now up into the second spot. But 7 seconds behind Sherman, who is making his series debut.
Making their way through some of the GT4 competitors there. Todd Coleman's having a nice, strong day with the Archangel Motorsports Aston Martin Racing Vantage. He's going to be sharing a similar car with Aaron Thielitz in GT4 America a bit later this afternoon.
And speaking of Astons, the GT3 Aston that runs right in between the two GT4 Astons. That's Tim Savage, who had the issue at the start. Amanda gave me an update to say that maybe there was some debris on the track or something, and that caused him to break traction at the start and maybe tag the wall slightly, but it looks like that car is okay. It continues on. But Tim now driving for the Pro Sport team run by Doug Livingston.
Oh, this was a bit awkward.
After a couple years racing for Kevin Buckler and the TRG squad.
Yeah, and Tim's actually recovering from an injury. He suffered snowboarding, I believe it was, with his kids earlier this year, so he didn't get the track time that he's hoping for leading into this event, but he says he's feeling better now and excited for the season.
Really good drive from Coleman, actually, because he started back second to last, actually last among the GT4 cars. But he's kept his nose clean here. He's up to third and has second place in his sights. It's not inconceivable.
Right, really solid run. So he'll be excited about that.
Coached by Aaron Thielitz, former, at the time it was Indy Lights, now Indy Next driver, who is still employed by Lexus on the GT3 side of things. New CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race. That goes to James Safronis. That was set just a few laps ago.
Wow.
He's gotten around Mirko Schultes, actually, as well.
And this is important for tomorrow's grid, of course, as fast laps here today will set the grid for tomorrow. So take a look and see who's got the advantage. 27 cars Daskalos. You can see he's really strong through sector 2 and 3, but up the hill and through that real elevation change sector, Safronis has the edge.
Yeah, great point about qualifying, or the grid, I should say, for tomorrow being set here by the fastest lap in this race. So this should stand James in very good stead. I think we were both surprised to see him starting as far down the order as he did today. But he's raced his way forward and has, at the moment, provisional pole for race 2 tomorrow. Battle hotting up here. George Kurtz has fallen into the clutches of Johnny O'Connell.
Here we go. This is Johnny licking his lips. He looks as fit as a fiddle these days. Said he's dropped 10 pounds in the off-season, recognizing the new demands. Saw him this time of the year last year, and he said, man, this is tough. I haven't been in a race car in a while, and these cars are really demanding, but he's up for the challenge. He's got so much passion for racing. He and I were first competitors back in our Atlantic days, back in the late 80s, and Johnny's just continued with his driving career and just had so much success. Really a class guy, and he just loves it. Always got a big smile on his face. He's loving life again. 4
consecutive championships in this paddock, back under the Pirelli World Challenge moniker. 2012, 2013, 2014, and 2015, driving for Cadillac Racing. Has class wins at Le Mans, class and overall win at Daytona, an overall win and 8 class wins at Sebring.
Sebring, yeah, Mr. Sebring, he is.
And a couple of Petit Le Mans, too.
Guess where we go next? He makes a move there. Kurtz is in trouble. Kurtz slowed momentarily, and Johnny O just pounces and moves up to P2.
Big development here.
That was strange. Just like George had no acceleration there momentarily.
Very odd.
Slow again there. He's not accelerating at the same rate as Johnny O. Johnny O's disappearing on him.
Justin Rothberg is 4th, but about 26 seconds in arrears. And with just over 5 minutes to go, even if that car isn't totally on song, there's still a chance for Kurtz to preserve a podium. Let's see, though, if we can learn anything from this replay here, Cal.
Looks normal to this point, and then as they accelerate off turn 2, George just doesn't seem to have the acceleration, and Johnny just, it was close, just squeezes around him.
I don't think Johnny saw that coming. That was very close to the two making contact.
That's bizarre, because he seems okay now, so I think Rothberg is way too far back at this sort of pace that Kurtz is maintaining. I think the real consideration is whether Safronis has enough pace to chase after Justin for P4. About 3 seconds behind, but has been cutting laps about a second a lap faster than Justin Rothberg, who holds down P4 for Turner Motorsports.
Here is Rothberg in the BMW, and there is Safronis. not too far behind. James Safronis is closing in this battle for 4th and 5th, but let's hear from the team owner with Amanda. Will Turner is standing by, keeping a close eye on Rothberg.
And as we take a look at that late accrete BMW, that does mean the return of Turner Motorsports into the paddock here in SRO America. And Will, as Justin gets his feet wet in this series, racing in Fanatec GT as well, what has impressed you so far?
Well, first, he's got a great attitude. We tested him, and he was a little timid jumping in a new car with a new team and stuff. But he really gelled well with our Turner team. And he's taking very good direction from his co-driver in the other class, Robbie Foley. So happy to have Justin out there. He's doing great and looking like he's in a little bit of traffic now with one of the most experienced guys in his class right behind him. We'll see what happens with only a couple minutes left. But he's doing a great job, and I look for good things this season with him.
Thank you, Will.
Yeah, this could be the moment here. Thanks, Amanda. As Rothberg gets checked up by traffic, Safronis smells blood. He gets to the inside. Oh, the two come together. And around goes Rothberg.
Yeah, James just really committed there. I mean, he saw the opportunity, and I think he just needed to woe it down and just ensure that he established himself to the inside. But again, I think we're seeing a consequence of the increased apex speed that we're seeing this year, and guys are feeling they can roll more speed through apex, where in years past, I think when you're down on the inside, you expect that competitor on the outside to have to give it up, and that's a different dynamic this year, and we'll have to wait and see what the steward's judgment is on that moment.
Hate to see it. Both drivers had put in really entertaining races to this point. Rothberg, who had dropped back at the start, charged his way back forward just off the podium, and Safronis, who did not have a great qualifying effort, had made his way up.
And sometimes you lose sight of the other competitor when you're so far apart with that wide piece of the racetrack. I'm not sure if Justin was really aware that James was down there at the inside, and suddenly he just really commits down at the inside as Justin is kind of arching across to look for the apex. I'd put that, 70–80% on Safronis there, and a little bit of responsibility on Justin, who had a bit of track to work with to open up his hands maybe.
To your point about maybe not fully knowing that James was there, it was a 3-wide moment exiting the carousel.
Exactly.
They had the GT4 car to the inside. Justin would have known he had cleared the GT4 car, but maybe not necessarily known that there was a GT3.
Well, most of these cars now have that rear-facing camera, so it gives you a little bit more idea of where the car is. You're not so much looking in those side view mirrors to see where he is, but he may have lost him momentarily, and then suddenly he was there. So either way, tough call for the stewards. They'll look at it and see if they can make a call before the end of this race.
Well, one lap to do it, because the white flag is out for the leader, Jason Daskalos, who has a 4.4-second advantage now on Johnny O'Connell. George Kurtz is not on the pace, Calvin. He just ran a 1:41.9 the last time by. Now a 1:40.2 on the last lap, so that's about 5 seconds off of his ultimate pace. But the good news is there's a massive gap back to the next car in class, and there's no guarantee that that car will escape a penalty either. So Kurtz looks like he could be in a position to bring home a podium with an ailing car if he can make it around 2.5 miles of Sonoma one more time. But at the front of the field, this is Jason Daskalos, yet to win a championship in GT America, but he's won a bunch of races and been a consistent competitor since he debuted in the first race of this championship back 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, and he always seems to come out of the gate strong. Had 4 wins last year, plus 7 podiums, on that way to P2 in the points. But what a brilliant race he's put together so far, just a couple of corners to go.
And the car in front is the leader in GT2, Aaron Farhadi, who's had a nice quiet day in stark contrast to the other 2 cars in his class. Daskalos easily clears him, though, heading into the braking zone for turn 11 for the final time. Jason Daskalos in a car run by Nick Short's operation, coming around the final corner, and Jason Daskalos will start the 2024 campaign with a victory in Sonoma. Aaron Farhadi, the winner in GT2, crosses the line and takes the checkered flag first. Now in the GT4 class, what a debut for Isaac Sherman. The Rotec Racing driver scores victory in the opening race of 2024.
Really solid run. It's impressive because there's some really tough competition in GT4 within this championship. So great day for Rotec. Porsche looks strong out there. And I just love GTA. I mean, it's really given us, I feel, some of the best racing we've seen throughout the SRO paddock in the last couple of seasons, and this season is shaping up to be the same.
In many respects, it is, and I've said this since the first day of this series, it is a throwback to what World Challenge was for many, many years. A sprint race, single driver, multi-class racing, all the different cars sharing the track together. And it does lead to some captivating competition as Jason Daskalos takes his cool-down lap, a chance to celebrate a race win to open 2024. Could this finally be the year he breaks through for a title?
Well, it's certainly shaping up, but you know, a lot of that competition is just going to get stronger. I mean, they know this car very well. You alluded to Nick Short and the CRP organization. They got a great notebook on this Mercedes, but you'd have to think that Johnny O, he finished in runner-up. As we look at him there, they're just going to get stronger as they learn the ropes with this Audi. So it's fascinating to see how this battle will shape up. And who knows what will happen tomorrow. I mean, the engineers will be digging deep tonight to put together a setup for tomorrow's start of the race.
I'll tell you this, looking ahead to the next round of the championship, which for GT America is a trip to the famous Long Beach Grand Prix. We know Daskalos loves a street course.
Yeah.
Johnny O'Connell's got a lot of laps around Long Beach over the years. That could be a ton of fun when we get to that event in just a few weeks' time.
And then we head to Mr. Sebring's track.
That's right, yeah. So maybe Daskalos feels like better make hay while the sun's shining before we get to Sebring, because that's also where the Ski Autosport team did its preseason testing. But that's still several months away. Here in the here and now, it's all about Jason Daskalos. Great result there. Still don't have a determination going back to that contact between Safronis and Rothberg. That cost Rothberg a couple of spots. He ultimately finished in 7th, as you can see here in these provisional results. But that incident is under review, and now we see from race control that a post-race time penalty will be handed to James Safronis for that incident. So he's shown in 4th, but surely will drop a significant way down the order. Podium, though, unchanged by that. Daskalos, O'Connell, and Kurtz. In the GT2 class, Aaron Farhadi cruised to the race win, and in GT4, great start to the year for Sherman, Newell, and Coleman. Looks like with that penalty factored in, Safronis will fall back down to 8th. So that promotes Schultes to 4th, Schwest to 5th, and Rothberg will finish 6th. But what could have been for Justin here on debut?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, big commitment by James down at the inside. There's plenty of room down there, and who knows whether Justin knew he was down at the inside. Either way, there was contact. Unfortunately, Justin went for a spin and lost several positions.
Chance to hear now from our race winner in Victory Lane.
And he just hugged his teammate and said, I thank you so much. I love you so much. And Jason, you kick off the season with a win as you set your sights on a championship. Can this be the year?
Yeah, I sure hope so. Everything Sheldon, my crew chief, is going through this year in the off season, you know, we want to win it for him. We really do.
Well, when you look at the performance of the car today, where did it give you the victory?
You know, obviously traffic helped. You know, George was on me through most of the first part of the race. I got through it with a little bit of traffic, got some clean air, and was able to get a gap. So I think that's what it was.
Enjoy this one, Jason. Race 2 tomorrow.
You can hear the emotion in his voice talking about Sheldon, the crew chief, stricken with cancer, as Calvin mentioned. Normally, that is one of the most upbeat guys you're going to see in the paddock. You can tell just how difficult this has been, but a little boost here to get victory to start the season.
Yeah, it'd be a wonderful story. I mean, as you said, he's been knocking on the doors for so many years, and an emotional season ahead as they continue to have Sheldon in their camp, and they'll celebrate every weekend, whatever happens with the result, I feel.
Well, Aaron Farhadi had a great day here today to pick up a win in GT2, and let's hear from him now.
Well, Aaron, it almost seemed like a leisurely stroll for you around this place in your class. And you look at the Lambo and the performance today. Where did it really benefit you here at Sonoma?
I mean, obviously we knew we would have great pace coming into this race, and we got a big lead at the start, and then the boys told me just to take it easy from there. So backed off a little bit, drove at like 80%, and just wanted to take home the win safe. That's about it.
Not a bad drive right into the winner's circle, right?
Yeah, not bad at all.
Nice job to Aaron as we make our way over to Gray Newell, who is getting his helmet off. It will be picking up a victory here as we kick off the season, and you back up 5 podiums of last year with a win here, Gray. Just your growth year over year, it really seems like you're coming into your own.
Well, yeah, you know, 4th year in a car, and just trying every weekend. I try to show up and say that I made a step forward. I've been lucky enough to be able to do a little bit of racing prior to this in another series, doing some endurance in a GT3 car. And let me tell you, it's really strange going back to GT4 after driving GT3. But the racing's really good because we can stay so close. But we'll just keep pushing from here.
Great to hear from Gray, runner-up finish here today. And I think we'll have a chance to hear from Isaac Sherman, hopefully, here momentarily. I know it gets confusing down there. I've been in that position before, and it's not always clear who to go to in those situations. But I think we're going to have a chance to hear from Isaac Sherman here shortly. Really exciting to see what he's got in store. Let's hear from him now with Amanda.
And as you can see the smile on Isaac Sherman, and you got to drive it in here in front of all these fans here at Race Sonoma. You look at the key to victory here today. What was it that led you to this spot?
Honestly, I think it was teamwork and just consistency, keeping my cool. This is my first time here with SRO and racing this GT4, but I think we pulled it together, and it turned out really well.
Thank you, Isaac.
Big smile on his face. Hard to win on debut. You only get one chance at it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
He was able to pull it off here in Northern California. Well, great start to the GT America powered by AWS season. We'll be back tomorrow with race 2 of the weekend. We'll see, can the race winners today back it up again tomorrow? Join us tomorrow to find out.